All right, so this video is titled Buffy Reboot Canceled, Let Her Rest in Peace. It's not a reboot. It's either a sequel or a revival. I've confirmed with many sources, including the people in the chat, that this is not a it's not a reboot, it's a revival. Let's see what he has to say.
So I am really sad.
Oh, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
This, but
no
I
jump
wanted you all
scares.
to hear it from me. Unfortunately, Hulu has decided not to move forward with Buffy New Sunnydale.
Well, smother me in gravy, you big dirty man, because it seems like just for once, Hollywood's had an attack of common sense and decided not to tarnish another beloved legacy IP with a trashy reboot featuring a bunch of middle-aged actors reprising roles they aged out of decades ago, getting embarrassed and outperformed by a new generation of unlikable, corporate-approved diversity hires designed for a modern audience.
Okay, so he officially has poisoned the well. That's what he always does. He starts out his video basically telling you how you should feel about this entire thing as quickly as possible so that now you are primed and ready. You're lubed up and ready for whatever he's going to tell you. And we're still using this image of this person screaming in 2026. Talk about letting something die. Can we stop using this dumb-ass meme in 2026, please? Also, side note, these guys are the ones that want old actors to come back. If they were to announce another Star Wars with some of the old actors or another Star Trek with like William Shatner, these guys would be first in line to see it. Because they don't really care if the actors are quote unquote aged out of their roles. That's just an excuse they're using to get you to dislike this, even though it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen now. But you have to already hate it before we even start talking about it in this video.
That's right. Just the other day, a very deflated-looking Sarah Michelle Gellar took to Instagram to confirm the news that Buffy fans everywhere most definitely hadn't been dreading. Hulu had decided to pull the plug on the new pilot for their show, Buffy New Sunnydale.
What's so funny about the title? I don't... All right.
Fuck, man.
Hulu has decided not to move forward with Buffy New Sunnydale. I want to thank Chloe Zhao because I never thought I would find myself back in Buffy's stylish yet affordable boots. And thanks to Chloe, I was reminded how much I love her and how much she means not only to me, but to all of you.
Wow, I'm honestly lost for words on this one. I feel like I'm living in bizarro world where Hollywood studios are suddenly making savvy business decisions, respecting creative legacies, and not treating their fans like absolute morons that'll gobble up whatever slop they expel into the worlds.
Why was this going to be slop, Critical Drinker? Why was it going to be slop? I'm curious what your reason for that is. Like, do you have any real proof that it's going to be bad? Or is it just like they're reviving a project that was about women and young girls, and so you immediately have to go into this is going to be shit no matter what mode for your audience? I also want to point out that if you've ever been to any comic book convention or any sort of gathering of fandoms, you will know that Buffy and Angel have some of the most loyal and largest fan bases. They're extremely excited about meeting these actors, meeting the people who were writers and directors and associated with these shows. And to pretend like this is something that the fans didn't want is just really disingenuous. It's extremely disingenuous. I'm just double checking. It does seem like there was quite a bit of fan outpouring for this project to happen. Part of the reason they even bothered to film a pilot and try to get this going is that most of the fan base wanted to see this, but okay.
Then again, it could just as easily be that the pilot was so hilariously, overwhelmingly shit that even the network that thought Alien Earth was a good idea couldn't possibly sanction it.
By the way, could be is really funny to me. You know, the executive that ended up canceling this, according to Sarah Michelle Gellar, never even watched the original show. So how could he be judging the show based on the quality of the original? Like, how does that argument even hold up? The person that didn't want it to move forward was very proud to say they never watched or cared about the original. So this isn't some protecting of a precious IP, of the sacred cow that is Buffy, the original series. That's not what was happening here. So his entire argument about the studio and the executives and them wanting to protect this IP, it doesn't mean anything because we know from firsthand accounts from Sarah Michelle Gellar herself that the person that made the decision was somebody who did not watch or even like the original series.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'll let you decide. But before you do, allow me to present you with the evidence in this case. Exhibit number 1, the plot.
All right,
as far as I can tell, New Sunnydale was meant to pick up 25 years after the climax of the original show with an...
So you know it's not a reboot then. So your title is bullshit. You said that the Buffy reboot was canceled. First of all, it can't be canceled because it was never picked up. It was a pilot they were giving to the studio to try and get it picked up. So it wasn't canceled. That doesn't make any sense. And it's not a reboot because you just admitted that in your first bit of quote-unquote evidence, it is a continuation of the story 20 years after the ending of the original series. So you either the person that wrote your title is fucking stupid, or you're just into clickbait and you don't give a fuck about whether or not it's real or not. Like...
older and more experienced Buffy now acting as a mentor for the next generation of Slayer, helping her to combat a brand new vampire threat. Wait, aren't there meant to be like thousands of Slayers all over the world now because Buffy activated them all at the final episode? And
it's almost like we would have to see what the explanation is in the pilot to understand if that the ending of the original Buffy series still holds up. If they're still continuing, because we don't know. We have no idea. Secondly, what you explained about Buffy training new Slayers to fight off a vampire threat is literally what the show was always about. The show was always about training a Slayer to fight vampires. That's what the show was. So how was it slop? How was that slop? That's literally what the original series was.
didn't the entire town get destroyed and turned into a giant hole in the ground? I mean...
it's almost like we'd have to see this new pilot to understand what the setup is for where it is and what happened with the town and what happened with the Slayers. God, you're fucking stupid.
I guess they could have moved the town to a new location, but wasn't
Yes!
the whole point of Sunnydale that it was like this idyllic Southern Californian town on...
It's called New Sunnydale, possibly meaning they're moving to a place that is Sunnydale titled New Sunnydale. Because that's the title of the fucking show.
the surface, but it was positioned directly above the Hellmouth, and that's why there were so many evil things going bump in the night.
Thank you for explaining the plot of the show.
Just so happened to move to a place where there's another Hellmouth? No.
Oh, oddly enough, maybe that's the premise of the show. Maybe Buffy and everybody associated with this moved to a new area where the Hellmouth is. They call it New Sunnydale, so they can bring all the Slayers there and train them on how to protect people from the threats that are going on. Maybe that's the premise. Like, we're not going to know exactly what's going to happen. You're asking questions that would have been answered in the pilot that is not getting picked up.
Ah, fuck it, who even cares? The writers probably didn't. It really just seemed like a cheap excuse to rehash the same exact premise as the original show, which, let's be honest, had kinda hit creative bedrock after 7 seasons.
So did you love it or did you not love it? Was it something you think should be protected and gatekept and that's why it shouldn't be picked up? Or was it always shit and that's why it shouldn't come back? You can't even keep your story right. You can't keep your story together. You get your scriptwriter to fix the shit. If the show wasn't good by the end, then bringing it back wouldn't immediately turn it into shit because it would have been shit anyway. So this idea of protecting something and gatekeeping something because it's so good they don't want to tarnish it, that entire argument goes away when you're saying that it wasn't good by the end of the series.
And I mean real seasons with like 22 episodes each, not the bullshit we have today where there's like 6 at most. I mean, it's...
Didn't you just praise A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which had less than 10 episodes? Didn't you just praise that? Okay.
It's not to say that it's impossible to carry on a show like that, just that I never got the impression there was this burning desire to see more of Buffy.
You're fucking stupid. Did you really just say that you didn't see any desire for Buffy to continue? In the Buffy fandom? Did you just say that? Absolutely unserious. Completely unserious. Holy shit.
Exhibit number 2, the showrunner. The original Buffy was created and overseen by Joss Whedon, and say what you want about the guy's, questionable conduct on set, but fuck me, did that man know how to write. He was an absolute creative powerhouse in his prime, often imitated but rarely equaled.
In this clip from 2020, where you were talking about the Justice League, Anatomy of a Disaster Part 1, I wonder if you considered Joss Whedon to be a creative powerhouse in this video. Let's watch this tiny clip and see if you respected the power of his creativity.
The studio was rapidly losing faith in Zack Snyder's creative vision, and when a personal tragedy forced Snyder to bow out midway through production, DC took the opportunity to bring in Joss Whedon to correct the movie, which is a bit like giving control of the Titanic 10 seconds before it hit the ice. Still is some of the most unintentionally hilarious nonsense that I've ever seen in a mainstream movie.
Okay, so not a creative powerhouse at all. All right, back to the creative powerhouse of Joss Whedon.
Able to take the angst and romance of a high school drama, fuse it with supernatural horror and self-aware dialogue, while working in moments of genuinely hard-hitting drama, tragedy, and pathos, and make the whole thing look easy. Buffy was never what you would call high art, because it never pretended to be.
Right, which is why getting mad about a slightly funny, silly, campy teen coming-of-age revival, getting mad about that is pretty fucking stupid.
It was campy and silly at times. You were never any doubt that this shit was made on a pretty tight budget, and it was always willing to poke fun at its goofy premise, but it was also a deceptively smart, complex, well-written show that wasn't...
Which, by the way, when they tried to quote-unquote fix this for the executive that did not pick it up, they made it darker and grittier. The original tone of this revival was very similar to the original series. But the executive didn't like it, even though he had never seen the original series. So they tried to change it for him and make it more darker and grittier and more adult-oriented in order to fix it. Which is the opposite direction they should have been taking it. But they did it for the studio.
Afraid to take its characters to some pretty dark places. But the Whedon of yesteryear is gone, even if he hadn't been cancelled by Hollywood years ago, and in retrospect the stuff he was accused of seems pretty mild compared to the shit that goes on in that town. The reality is that even if he was able to come back, he isn't the man he used to be. Either way though, the replacement for him is Chloe Zhao, a director whose track record is more spotty than a teenage Warhammer fan. She shot to fame with the Oscar-winning indie film Nomadland a few years ago.
Yeah, so Chloe has won awards for Hamnet, which is currently, right now, you can watch it on Peacock, and I believe it's still in theaters. Some select theaters, I guess. And she's a pretty well-respected director in the industry. So, you know.
Then for some reason tried to helm a $200 million Marvel movie with disastrous results.
They always bring this one up. Why don't you mention all of the other things she's done where she's been so great at it? No, we have to bring up the one thing that wasn't well received financially, but most people would agree that the movie was a good movie. It just wasn't financially successful. We bring up this one thing because you were building a narrative against this Buffy.
And finally bounced back with the award-winning drama Hamnet.
Oh,
she's clearly not-
which thank you for mentioning that, which she was accepting an award for when she got the news that they weren't moving forward with the Buffy revival. When they weren't moving forward with the Buffy revival.
Not without talent as a filmmaker, although I'd argue that Nomadland got glazed harder than Sinners, but it's also very obvious where her creative sensibilities lie, and it's not with an IP like Buffy. She's an indie director who's better suited to slow-paced dramas and low...
Wasn't Chloe one of the people that wanted to do the Buffy revival? I think that Chloe was very instrumental in getting this thing off the ground. Yeah, back in February of 2025, Deadline did an interview, and Chloe said that she was a self-professed lifelong Buffy fan who was set to direct the pilot, and she's one of the people that helped get it off the ground. Wasn't entirely her idea, but she strongly pursued it. So why are we pretending like Chloe was asked to do it and she did it anyway, even though it's not something that she typically does for no random reason, I guess?
Budget experimental projects than supernatural horror laced with action and self-aware humor. Comparing someone like her to peak Joss Whedon is like comparing a pickup truck to a Formula 1 car. They are two very different things, and while each has its uses, they can't begin to do each other's jobs. Exhibit number 3, the modern audience.
Oh my God. Okay, let's get into this one. This one's going to make me, like, bang my head on the desk, I'm sure.
The original Buffy was part of a pretty interesting wave of late 90s pop culture shows like Xena Warrior Princess, The X-Files, Farscape, and Stargate SG.
Buffy, at the time that it came out, was a trendsetter. It was literally catering to a modern audience. That's what the original Buffy was doing. It set the foundation for many of the kinds of shows we have today that have the same premise of like coming of age, young adult, drama, comedy, action. It is definitionally, is that even a word? We'll use this word. It was definitively a modern audience show when it came out. Just like all the stuff you're showing here.
One that all featured strong, capable, well-written female characters. But unlike the strong female characters of today, they were more than just bitter, spiteful, feminist revenge fantasies against imaginary enemies.
Didn't you just make fun of the show and the stories and the characters a second ago? So now you're saying that it's layered and detailed and does a really good job with women. But before you were saying it was like campy and silly and didn't take itself too seriously. So now you're having conflicting ideas on what the show was. But go off, Queen.
They worked with the men around them, not against them. Damn.
Wait. Buffy worked with the men around her and not against them? Did you even watch the show? Spike? Angel? It wasn't like a perfect relationship with either of those characters. Matter of fact, they weren't always working together. They were antagonists. There were times where they were not aligned with each other. Buffy didn't always agree with them and didn't just go along with everything the guys on the show did. Oh, Sis didn't even watch the show. All right.
Man, I know people talk fondly about the 80s, but honestly, we had no idea how good we had it back in the 90s.
These are the same clips he used
Buffy
in
as
every
a character
fucking
was
video.
more physically powerful than almost any human alive because she was the Slayer, obviously. But when you get right down to it, she was still a teenage girl. She was allowed to be vulnerable, to make mistakes, to need help and guidance from the people around her. She didn't take any shit from the men in her life.
So what does that have to do with anything that's going on in this pilot? You didn't see it. You're not judging the pilot based on anything that you've seen. So what does this have to do with anything? Matter of fact, this whole video, right? This whole video is based on speculation of a pilot we're probably never going to see.
But neither did she exist to beat them down and bully them. Whedon was smart enough to know that you can't write a protagonist who excels at everything, and it's our flaws and weaknesses that are what make us human and relatable.
So you're saying that Chloe didn't do that in this pilot that you didn't see? That you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's the kind of character they were going to have in the pilot without ever seeing it? That's interesting.
Crazy, I know, but that's how we used to do characters back in the day. But that was then, and this is now, and the mindset of Hollywood is very different these days. The idea of writing a flawed, relatable female lead who doesn't always have the answers and might even need a man to help her out once in a while is as alien to them as finding a fat person attractive is to me. Yep.
I don't understand, like, what are you even talking about? You didn't see the pilot. You didn't see it, so all of these comparisons are based on something you didn't see. This is literally a straw man argument.
Shot here is that I absolutely do not trust modern Hollywood writers to handle a show like Buffy. I don't think...
So is it the modern writers or the modern audience? Which one are you concerned about? You titled this section Modern Audience, but then you said modern writers. So it's not the audience, it's the writers that you have an issue with.
They have the maturity, or the balance, or even the writing skills to do what Whedon did back in the 90s, and I think the cultural pressure on them to make the whole thing some clumsy allegory for whatever political hot topic happens to be in fashion at the time would have been too much for them to resist.
The show literally was a product of its time. Go back and actually watch Buffy. Go back and watch it. It is a product of its time. A lot of the shows that came out in this era are products of their time.
And so, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My case against the revival of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Well, your case against it is based on a pilot you haven't seen. I mean... Okay.
It's the wrong idea, shaped by the wrong people, and released at the wrong time, and I think even Hulu might have realised that. As much as we bang on about Hollywood's retarded dedication to the message.
Arsler! That message thing you keep posting has become a parody now. It's a parody of your own work.
No matter how much money it burns, I do think the culture is finally changing, mostly by force, but whatever, and projects that might have been automatically greenlit 5 or 6 years ago are being looked at a bit more closely now. Questions are being asked of them, like, do we want to invest $100 million in this? Is there...
Oh, is that what they said in the room when they were talking about this? Were you there? Was that the conversation they were having? Are you sure? That hasn't been brought up at all. Okay.
Or even a market for this thing?
Yes, there's a Buffy fan base that still wants to see Buffy. So there is a market for it. Continue.
Fans gonna support a lazy modern rehash of their favorite IP? And if...
It depends. Was it lazy? Did you see it? Are you sure it was lazy? Did you watch the pilot?
If the answer to those questions is no, then guess what? It doesn't get fucking made.
Exactly. But you don't know because you haven't seen it. So you're presenting questions where we'll never get the answer to, most likely.
Yeah, it might have been cool in theory to see Sarah Michelle Gellar step back into the Slayer shoes.
Also, you admit that people might have wanted to see it. It might have been cool to see her step back into the shoes. So you're admitting that there might have been an audience out there for it. At the end of your video, after you've spent almost 8 minutes talking shit about everything to do with this revival.
One last time as an older and wiser Buffy, but the time to do that sort of thing was like a decade ago when she was still young enough to kick ass as the lead character.
Also, women age out of being kick-ass characters, but Keanu Reeves can be John Wick until he's 90. Hugh Jackman can be Wolverine until he's 100. But women, there's an expectancy, a life expectancy on their ability to be a kick-ass character. It just, at a certain point, it just drops off. They're just incapable of playing those roles.
Before the dark times descended over Hollywood's. And let's be real, she doesn't need Buffy anymore. Her career is going through a bit of a resurgence lately. She's got plenty of new and interesting roles to choose from.
There was no need Buffy. Her and the team that put this together wanted to do this. They didn't say they needed to do it or they were being forced to do it by anybody. That's the other thing. This angle that the studio pushes messaging and that all of these activists within studios are making things that push some sort of feminist agenda. It dries up when you have actual women making a passion project that they do on their own to pitch to the studios. Because then it's the opposite of every accusation you've made towards Hollywood studios. Now, all of a sudden, the studios are the good guys, and they're stopping women from making woke feminist agenda material. Make it make sense.
She doesn't need to wheel out some dusty old character from 25 years ago. So is this the end of the road for Buffy, or is it just delaying the inevitable? Well, apparently the team behind it are still hopeful they'll find a way forward for new Sunnydale, but if they had any common sense, they would take the hint and let Buffy the Vampire Slayer rest in peace.
Interesting. Very enlightening. I think that I will just ignore someone who is sexist and misogynistic when they say we don't need to see women in TV shows and media after a certain age. I think I'm just going to ignore that.